Joining me now, Counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, so good to see you tonight.
Hey, Trish, to coin a couple of overused Washington words, that was pretty explosive. I'll call it a bombshell. Comey was forced to go on TV yesterday and forced to admit that basically he's a liar and a leaker. We knew that already. It's just too bad that he always got a hero's welcome wherever he went, including with his book, which is riddled with errors as well. Kill the fatted calf, roll out the red carpet. Here comes Jim Comey, who oversaw an out-of-control FBI. That is obvious. The Hillary people were disgusted with him toward the end of the election. She lost that election herself. Then other people are mad at him. But he basically had to admit that the FISA system wasn't just riddled with errors, but that he failed from the very tippy top to do what he needed to do to have proper oversight and procedures adhered to. And it's very disappointing because this is somebody who took 2 solid months to come to Trump Tower to meet the president-elect. He was in the middle of a 10-year term as the FBI director. And little-known fact, you got Kanye West, Steve Harvey, Shinzo Abe came from Japan. All these people came to Trump Tower. You saw them every day. All these people came to Trump Tower. And it took Jim Comey 2 months to get there as the FBI director. And then on that January 6th day, that Friday, he's pretending that he briefed the president the way he had briefed President-elect Trump. He pretended he briefed him the way he had briefed President Obama, Vice President Biden, and he hadn't. It was done differently. I tried to say that on a different station on January 11th of that year. It will always be true, and now we know he lied about that and worse. I think the Horowitz report is explosive for another reason. It makes very clear that the Steele dossier was, quote, essential to the FISA applications, and we know that that's been discredited. We know the media were trying to run around and legitimize it and verify it all through 2016 and couldn't do that. And so we'll see what Durham does with his report.
And yet still they're trying to legitimize it.
It's just a reminder of what abuse of power looks like. It's really ironic to me that these 2 very thin and weak articles of impeachment include abuse of power. Abuse of power happened under Jim Comey. You want to know what it looks like? Right there.
You know, that dossier was paid for by the Clinton camp. It's opposition research.
Yep,
opposition research, by the way, that was conducted by foreigners. You know, so if you're worried about Vladimir Putin and how he might be able to infiltrate or affect an American election or integrity of our system, well, there you go. And yet the media kind of treated it as gospel, Kellyanne, and still there are members of the media, CNN, I believe, MSNBC, we've seen that just won't discount it. Why are they clinging to this? Why are they clinging to something that they have not reported out themselves and the Inspector General has discredited it?
Well, there certainly is a rush to put a super long superhero's cape on whoever is a Trump detractor, a defector, and you probably couldn't find a bigger one, no pun intended, than Jim Comey at the time. But he's got a lot to answer for, as does his number 2, Andrew McCabe, and some others at the highest levels. And maybe make clear what I've said many, many times, but I'll say it again. It's a shame that this went on at the tippy top of the DOJ and the FBI in the last administration and during transition, because there are tens of thousands of men and women at the FBI and the DOJ, indeed, who do a wonderful job every single day and do it with integrity. So, but I think that we haven't heard the last of Jim Comey. But again, he's out there making, according to the New York Times, it gave him a glowing profile. He's out there making 6-figure speeches, selling his book. And remember, he's never under oath when he does any of that. And when he was under oath, he lied anyway. You know, I also just have to say that in this impeachment nonsense, since it's this week, you know, the Democrats made a couple of big errors. That's their problem. But they never brought any Republicans aboard, but they really haven't brought the public aboard. If you look at the polls, particularly in swing states like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan, if you look among independents in many of these polls, Trish, they're going in the opposite direction, away from impeachment. It's been a labyrinth. It's been difficult to follow. And I think that because people went too hot, too quickly, too far and too fast against Donald Trump from the beginning, they were supposed to have the recount. We're going to find those 70,000 votes, and Hillary, just hang on, we'll get Hillary in there. Then it's emoluments, then it's the SDNY, then it's Mueller, then it's a bunch of porn people, then it's the EDNY, then it's going to be Michael Cohen's going to bring him down, then it's Russia collusion, then it's obstruction, then it's denouncing his tweet in a resolution in the summer, and now it's the grand finale, impeachment. And people are looking up and saying, is this all you've got? You promised you would get rid of him 3 years ago.
Sure.
And now we have these 2 articles.
That.
And what does his list look like? His list is a little bit different. His list is a trade trifecta, is getting al-Baghdadi and his number 2, evil number 2. It's 174 federal judges. It's a decline in the overdose deaths. It's rebuilding our military. It's getting the NDA, AA reauthorized. It's getting paid family leave, Space Force. And that's
got a
just
great
the last
looking stock
market.
You know,
the stock market
and a good
continues
economy.
to smash records.
So, but
very
Kellyanne,
different list, real counter programming.
Jerry Nadler and Adam Schiff are still out there, I think, trying to get ahead of a potential 2020 win for Trump, because let's face it, all those things you just mentioned, that's kind of hard to run against, right? So in their defense, they're looking at it saying, oh my gosh, how are we going to get him? And so what do they go to? Oh, well, somehow he's cheating again. We have to get him out. We have to impeach him before he cheats in another election cycle. It's critical he be removed from office now to prevent that. What is that about?
Well, as you see, they have no credibility. Adam Schiff is being called a liar and being shouted down in his own district, which I'm sure he thinks is safe blue territory. People are really angry, and I think in the end they're going to consider the source. They're going to say that you wasted my time and my money doing this, and if you waste my time, you risk my trust. And they have wasted time focusing on this. I think that so many people, so many Democrats, and some of them are enablers, have become exactly what they accused Donald Trump of being: myopic and delusional and obsessed and wrapped in this fantasy of self-denial and at the same time self-aggrandizement. I think the Democrats had terrible, terrible leaders here in Schiff and Nadler, and their witnesses. I still don't understand what they were doing with some of the witnesses. I worked very closely with Fiona Hill here. She's the person I know best, who were among all the witnesses, except for Jonathan Turley, who was my law professor many, many moons ago. And I always had a great. I think I think Fiona Hill's a wonderful public servant. I always got along with her. I don't understand the relevance of some of the testimonies. These are people who said they never met the president. They never talked to him about anything, let alone Ukraine. So you can forgive America for tuning in and saying, wait a second, I'm used to seeing trials where here comes the police officer who took the fingerprints and moved the body. Here comes the critical care emergency room nurse who did the triage.
Yeah.
Here comes the person who needs an alibi. Here comes the person who was with them at the restaurant. These people weren't good fact witnesses. And then we had,
well, to your point, they didn't get the public along. They didn't bring the public along.
They never got the public along.
Let me ask you about this. You know, you've wound up certainly in the media yourself in ways that you probably don't like and don't want. And I think, you know, I look at it, and as a woman myself, Kellyanne, I think it's really unfortunate. For some reason, this media cannot accept, I guess, the idea that a woman has her own job, her own viewpoint, and that may be different than some of her family members. What's going on with the media right now in that somehow, and again, I don't want to dwell on this because I know you're sick of it, but when you think about how far women have come, Kellyanne, and there's still these stereotypes out there that are promoted by the mainstream media that women have to fight. How are you dealing with that?
Well, it depends. It depends on who the woman is. And I think when the history books are written and it mentions that I was the first woman to run a successful presidential campaign, indeed the first woman to ever be the campaign manager for a Republican presidential campaign, let alone successfully, the rest of the sentence has to say, and Donald Trump put me there. I was 49, hiding in plain sight when he made that move. And it tells you something about Donald Trump and women. It's just he's made a career out of elevating them into positions of responsibility and authority and power. And he doesn't say, oh, you're a woman, go here, or oh, I'm running against a woman, or we need the woman's vote. He did it in New York real estate in the 70s and 80s when people ridiculed him for doing it. He certainly did it at the Trump organization, the Trump campaign, the Trump cabinet, the Trump White House, the Trump administration. It's just very natural for him. I read an article, I read something a long time ago that Donald Trump, he enjoys the company of both men and women, but he confides in the women. I think that's actually very well said. But look, I think it's difficult for people to see certain women certainly in Washington, certainly in Republican politics or in government, who work for this president, doing a good job or having joy on the job, and being in this type of position. But it also just suggests to me that people don't have anybody in their lives with whom they disagree, and I think that's weird in and of itself. Everybody running around saying, I'm an independent thinker, I'm a revolutionary, I'm a renegade, I'm a leader because I said so. Yeah. And yet they have no one in their circle of friends or their family or their life with whom they disagree.
That's a very good point.
That's kind of weird.
You need that intellectual diversity. Keeps a relationship going. Hey, Kellyanne, keep having fun. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
I intend to do that, Trish. Thanks for having me. Take care. Bye-bye.